So today's lesson is entitled Developing Self-Resilience. Certainly, the lesson title came after talking with multiple people over the last few weeks, both at work as well as in relationship to others in conversations. And of course, it's not hard for any of us to understand between COVID, wildfires, politics about COVID and wildfires, politics afar, Afghanistan, or politics more locally, California recall. It has some people in a state of anything but peace. Some are burnt out, some are exhausted, some are lonely, some are depressed. You fill in the blank. Now, all of that got me to thinking about our annual theme here at the center, which has been revealing wholeness. Because wholeness is our truth. It is at the core of us. We're just sometimes distracted or have beliefs that have been set or patterns of thinking, patterns of behavior that are not aligning with what we are being called to do now. And of course, with the annual theme, Revealing Wholeness, of course, I'm also thinking about climate change, and when I say climate change, I'm not just talking about the lack of water, although again, we're being called for greater awareness and gratitude for water. I was at Paradise Lake yesterday. I know many of you have seen Lake Oroville. I love Mother Earth. And am I opening and calling to that vibration of recognizing and being grateful for how Mother Earth has and does sustain us? So yes, I mean climate change in the sense of water and fires, but also the U.S. or the worldly climate of governing for the people, by the people, with the people. So I felt called to this topic of developing self-resilience because at the macro level, what's happening out there is changed by the micro level, which is what's happening in here. I'm going to start first with Paramahansa Yogananda. Many of you are familiar with this Hindu concept where Yogananda describes, and I'm going to take this from an excerpt from one of his books. Yogananda, back in 1923, presented to the Congress. And he used the example of how we watch a movie. When we are sitting in the cinema theater, in our chairs, present in that dark room, we're aware that the projector from the back of the room is sending streams of light onto a blank screen. And as the movie rolls forward, we become encaptured in the plot. And we begin to react to what we're seeing on the screen as though it is reality for us. So really, it's an illusion of what's being projected. Now, we do this to ourselves all the time when we know we are the presence of peace and love and joy and the many attributes we spoke about in the healing meditation. But we become distracted by the screen of what's happening out there in life. Now, I'm not saying be calloused and don't be paying attention to what's happening. I'm not talking about going into isolation and not being connected to what is. But as you know, there's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the question is, are you letting what's on the projector screen begin to be how you're managing your life, reacting to your life, and forgetting the truth of your beingness? Are you, because we can, for 24 hours a day, let that projector screen continue to disturb us, continue to allow our minds to be distracted by all of those things out there, which of course, whatever you're looking for, you can find. In other words, we know by theory that we are always looking for things that reassure us based on our own beliefs. So are we allowing all of these things Are we giving it lots of time when indeed we know that the truth and the reality of our life is how we want to live it, meaning choosing what we want to contemplate and be in the world? So it is with life that we always, always, always have an awareness, a presence, a spirit, a higher power, a universal source, whatever you want to call it, that is always with us, because it's the only way that we can express who we are and to live life. But how often do we bring ourselves into that awareness, forgetting that the presence and the truth is right here, and now we're just going to let the world distract us of all the possibility of things that, as the neighbors from the Chinese farmer from today's meditation might say, oh, so bad, oh, so good. Well, maybe. There is deep peace, love. There is a place of respite. And I speak to this again knowing that, some people are tired of the mask. I'm tired of COVID. I'm tired of. And we're letting then what's in the outer continue to rub us. And really, in some ways, if we're being called to come back to our center, to go to the place where we can restore ourselves. So for a moment here, I'm going to do a little activity for a minute or two. I'm going to ask that you repeat in your mind, I am aware that I am aware. And then take a breath. I am aware that I am aware. And then take a breath. Now I'm going to ask you to keep doing that, and yes, your mind will wander, because that's what the mind does. And we don't resist that or judge that. We allow the mind to wander and softly bring ourselves back to our mantra. I am aware that I am aware. And take a breath. Repeat for the next minute. Bring yourself back into the room. Anybody's mind wander off from that mantra? It happens. And then we softly bring ourselves back to the mantra. Any of us ever lose ourselves in the news? And we softly bring ourselves back to centering. Now I realize that takes really discipline and awareness of the awareness that we can self-restore. Awareness is always a choice. You know, when your mind wanders off, the presence or that awareness is still there. If we're sitting next to each other, I can always ask you, hey, what are you thinking about? And you're aware of what you were just thinking about. Your awareness is always present, it's never gone. Just like the love that you are, the health that you are, the peace that you are, it is always there. there is a deep peace that never goes away, because innately it is who we are. And so it is with our wholeness, as we may feel burnt out, lonely, or some other feeling based on, again, all the distractions around us. Can we care for ourselves? Can we move ourselves away from that projection screen and bring ourselves into the present moment, just like we are here and now? So let's talk about our self-resilience and how do we lead ourselves back to this place. So first, I want to start with, what do we really mean by self-resilience? How do we adapt and bounce back when things aren't going our way or when things are rubbing us to be distracted, burnt out? Now, psychologists define resilience as a process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, which could be family, relationships, health problems, workplace or financial stressors. As much as resilience involves bouncing back from difficult experiences, it can also involve profound personal growth. Now that's from a psychologist. So now from a spiritual perspective, we can also add that all of this involves profound spiritual growth. So self-resiliency is characterized by the ability to equip yourself to face and meet challenges within all aspects of your life. And like building a muscle, you can increase your resilience. And increasing your resilience will take intentionality, discipline, some people don't like that word, and time. This is maybe a bad example, but it's like if you eat a lot of junk food and then your health goes downhill, you can't just eat health food for one day and think you're going to get healthy the day after that, right? In other words, these times are calling us to do our spiritual practice, whatever that is. Maybe listening to beautiful music. Maybe just spending time with yourselves where you're not allowing the world's message and news to be wearing you down, but to bring yourself back into the presence. All right. So let me ask. This is where the microphones in the room come in handy, and the Zoomers get to hear what the roomers think about what would you say are the characteristics of resilient people? What would you say are the characteristics of resilient people? Determination. So focus, and I know there's a little bit of self-belief that I know I can do this, and I'm aimed and putting my focus and energy to reach an outcome. Trust. And self-trust, tell me more about what the trust would be.
Trusting that everything is unfolding perfectly.
Trusting that things are unfolding perfectly. Beautiful. Perseverance. So I'm not going to let myself be a victim. Now granted, sometimes things happen to us. This is not about being calloused and not being compassionate. You will have to go through a process.
Introspection
And reflection on what is going on, and then allowing for a greater perspective, right? I mean, we can get into the micro level of things, and we can get into the macro level of things. So do we spend our time grinding, again, where is our focus, and how long are we allowing ourselves to be in a state based on what's affecting us, and then getting a broader, bigger picture.
Healthy boundaries, very important. And
some of us don't set boundaries well with people or situations, and that takes practice.
Is that an innate human nature?
What is a resilience? Can be. Again, a lot of folks right now, what I'm trying to do is remind ourselves that if we don't have the tools or the skill sets, that we can gain them to bring ourselves back to knowing the wholeness that is within us. Amy?
Resilient people have a lot of gratitude.
Gratitude. Gratitude, a very important spiritual practice, because as we become grateful, first of all, our awareness moves towards the truth of how the universe provides for us, supports us. Adaptive, yes. No, I want it this way.
Patience.
Yes, patience. I have to keep, our philosophy is a lot about change your thinking to change your life. So I want to go back to the adaptability, which there actually, about 7 years ago were a lot of books about mindset. And a mindset, especially as we get older, when we already think we know what we like and don't want, right? And sometimes we can start to get set in our ways where when we were younger, we were more open and adventurous. But adaptability and being able to learn, which means taking a step back and again, looking for, is there something in this challenge that I can learn from? And then from there, choosing to lean into that change and adapting with the change that comes our way versus I'm angry, I'm upset, I don't like what's happening. I mean, again, sometimes, something will be happening. It's like, I don't like what's going on. But can I really change that? Or am I just going to accept, in the cases where I can't control anything, accept what is and then move myself to be okay with what is? Belief. So again, if you were raised in a family that did not help support the fact of the belief in yourself, the belief in a higher power, to bootstrap ourselves, I know, sometimes depression can be, I'm stuck in this life as it is right now, without, again, the greater perspective. And if you don't have a faith in something that can lift you up, that can be a corner or a dead-end alley that we may move ourselves into.
Finding healthy support.
Finding healthy support. We don't have to do it on our own. And sometimes it's difficult when we're in a space of needing help to have to have enough, to bring enough energy up to ask for the help that you may need. Another wonderful thing about a spiritual community, there are people here who want to support you, who know that you are loved and will demonstrate that love for you, doing spiritual mind treatment and knowing a greater truth that, again, lives at the center of your being. We did pretty good on the list that I have here. How many of you know the Serenity Prayer? A beautiful prayer for being clear about the things that you can change, maybe how you're thinking or feeling about a particular situation, where in some cases there are things you cannot control. Again, adaptability and perspective. And so when things don't go your way, sometimes we just try to manipulate the situation and then make ourselves more angry or lose more energy than stepping back. How do we get to a space to empower ourselves? And that's where, again, I feel like having a spiritual practice or practices that you can go to can allow yourselves to recenter yourself, to regain your strength, to regain your foundation, and to be able to, again, step back from what's happening on the screen of life and making sure that we're nurturing ourselves and reminding ourselves of the truth of who we are. Not letting ourselves be taken away. I mean, you could do that forever. Taken away by the distractions of the world. Now again, I want to make sure I'm saying that doesn't mean isolate yourself and do not be paying attention to the world. The world has lots of messages for us. It is a place where we can actually look and say, what is being called for in that situation? And then take that as the lesson of how can I do that. In the case of I love Mother Earth, I had mentioned to you on September 5th that I did a little more gardening this year than I've done in quite a while. And I still want to continue to pursue that because, like most things in life, the first time you try gardening, some things went well and some things not so well. Where I place things, how much water, etc., etc. But I know, under the current circumstances, that I want to continue to move based on how I believe regarding climate change, what's my responsibility, and how can I make change in the micro to make a difference in the macro. So that's a call for me. You may find other calls depending on what it is about you see in the world today, regardless of how you view that. Now, you know what's funny is I was searching up self-resilience on Google, and what came up instead was self-reliance. Now, for those of you who know about our science of mind philosophy, well, first of all, most Americans who studied literature know of the book Self-Reliance. Who wrote that? Emerson. And Emerson wrote that in 1841. He was an American transcendentalist philosopher who heavily influenced our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, which I just found like, okay, I'm being called to speak to Emerson. Now, Emerson, again, he was born in 1801. He wrote Self-Reliance in 1841, so a little bit different times per se than where we are today. But transcendentalism was between the 1820s and 30s. Name some other transcendentalists. Whitman. Thoreau.
Louisa May Alcott.
Alcott. Longfellow.
Margaret Fuller.
And a lot of these folks, what did they think about nature?
With healings.
Nature was healing. Literally, Emerson said he found divinity in nature. He felt that nature, if we were in it, inundated by it, introspective, reflective on it, that we could find solutions that would speak to us through our intuition and our imagination. What he was really resisting is he was raised Unitarian, and he said, I find conventional religion confining, and that he felt that the way he put it was people per se do not necessarily need dogma or creed to be pushed upon them, but instead there is some self-discovery, and I will almost say some ownership in understanding your own truth. So the reason why they were called transcendentalists, because they knew that, and they literally felt, all people know more about themselves beyond the see, hear, taste, touch, and feel. He knew there were other senses. Now, he didn't have the language of vibration and the energy, based on the heart math book I had spoke to, how scientists are now measuring the space of the heart, and that indeed they can now see that when you enter a room or interacting with somebody, that your energy is being picked up, those vibrations. Again, science wasn't that far along. We're continuing to have more language to speak to that, and again, more understanding of how that actually worked. But Emerson actually opposed mass party politics because he felt it was pushing a platform generally among all people, and yet felt that each individual had a unique thought or expression of life. Is some of this sounding familiar? Again, transcendentalists, that philosophy is interweaved into the philosophy of us, the science of mind. One of Emerson's mottos was trust thyself, and he again viewed the earth and nature as a spiritual plane. And then this last quote, and I'll move on from here. Emerson said, it's easy in the world to live after the world's opinion because you just ride right along with everybody else's opinion. And it's easy in solitude to live after your own. In other words, you can disconnect from the world and isolate yourself. But a great man, woman, is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps perfect sweetness of the independence of solitude. In other words, as science of mind practitioners, can we be rooted and centered in knowing our truth and then go out and live in the world and allow that to vibrate out rather than letting influences move us, again, when you're watching the news or media, into all these other places that may not feel comfortable or nurturing to us. All right, so then, what does it come down to for resilience? Well, what do we actually believe in science of mind? Many of you know, and for the newcomer, this is actually in the brochure. Thank you, Amy, for that new brochure that we are distributing here. Yes, we believe there is a God, call it what you want, a living spirit that is indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause, meaning all things stem from that source. We believe that we are an individualized expression of that spirit, and that all people are an individualized expression. And we believe that heaven is within us, and we can experience to the degree that we become conscious of it. And I would say conscious and maintaining that awareness. We believe the ultimate goal of life is to be complete freedom from all discord of every nature. Now, that doesn't mean the world is perfect. It means that how we live and understand the projection of what's happening in the world, that we can stay centered and live in the heaven within. We believe in the direct revelation of truth, through our intuitive and spiritual nature. But you can't have that if you don't practice it. There are many other things, but those are the ones that I highlight that are specific to today. So, essentially, how are we being called to develop self-resilience? And because I don't want you to just walk out of here and say, that was a nice lesson, Kathy, I want to ask you, what hit you today that you're willing to commit to remembering as you leave for this week? Opening it up.
Trusting myself.
Trusting yourself, that innately there is a truth and a power within you, believing in yourself. Spirit is there at your center.
Remembering to get centered.
Remembering to get centered, so that you can move from that centeredness out into the world rather than, okay, I'm off balance, but I'm going to go out here and see if I can find balance.
Because I'm aware that I am aware.
I am aware that I am aware, and I have used that for myself many times when I'm in a situation that I'm not feeling good about, and then just bringing myself back to, I'm aware that this is not feeling good. That immediately then creates the space where I've got a bigger perspective and I'm aware of that, and now I have choice on how I want to respond.
That Mother Nature is really, for me, I guess, the growing spirit of who I am.
Beautiful. So nature speaks to you too, and remembering that, because either by calling on nature, being in nature, a reminder, you are one with that. Beautiful.
Remembering that I am whole, perfect, and complete.
Remembering that you are whole, perfect, and complete. And when you remember that, and you use the power of your word to speak that, you are actually intentionally lining up your energy and the intelligence of your body to say, this is what I know, demonstrate it for me. You know, there's lots of things that happen. We don't pay attention to our heartbeat. We don't tell our heart to beat. But I can tell you, my heart opens up when I focus on love. And again, heart math is demonstrating that. So by placing your intentionality, you're lining up your consciousness to know the greater truth.
Evolving by always moving forward.
Evolving by always moving forward. Yeah, not letting yourself get stuck, and sometimes that means letting go. Sometimes that means leaning into the change that is happening and creating with that change. Instead of like, I don't want this to change, it's like, okay, it's changing. What can I do to create with this change?
Trusting my divine nature.
Trusting your divine nature. And so reminding yourself that your divine nature is there and now you are focused on it.
Being in gratitude.
Being in gratitude. We can never do that enough. I don't know how many times I've made that okay, I'm doing gratitude this week. Beautiful. Yes.
Learning to grow old gracefully.
Learning to grow old gracefully and gratefully. Beautiful. Love that. All right. Beautiful. I love coming back around and letting for each of you, whatever spoke to you today, be a part of your experience going forward. Yes.
I think I picked up on knowing when to surrender and let go and let God.
Knowing when to surrender.
Persevering and pushing till it's painful.
Yes. And, I love that because I know that we get lost in what's happening and then we want to make it better, forgetting let me come back to the bigger perspective. And when you come back to the bigger perspective, you may actually find you have a lot more choice than when you were down here really pushing it, going to make it happen the way you thought it should happen. Beautiful. And if you need more support in this, I'm going to say once again, leverage our practitioners. If you haven't seen our new wall, thank you to Reverend Michael and Reverend Connie and a few other people who gave input and feedback. All of our practitioners and ministers, as you go on the other side of this wall, we have our pictures and who we are, and you can contact the office and we'd be happy to work with you so that you can know your greater truth. All right? Namaste. And now, back to beautiful music.